I feel like it goes without saying that every character on the ninja team has gone through a very interesting arc over the course of the show, but in my opinion, no one has more of a drastic change than Nia. And I think that goes without saying because she goes from someone who's more of a background character, someone who has her arcs, but she never really has a main stake when it comes to the show. But in the end, more towards Dragon's Rising, you'll find that she is by far one of the main characters, and definitely one of the more outstanding one when it comes to the ninja team. But that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about how Nia went from being a background character or something that would basically just serve the plot to one of the most powerful and one of the most mained characters in all of the show, and one of the biggest heroes in all of the merged lands, because Nia definitely has come a long way, and she's a fantastic character because of that. So let's start at the very beginning. Nia started out essentially as just the sister to Kai. She was just the character that Kai had to go after in the pilots, and she never really served much more of a purpose. As soon as she was rescued, she was shuttled back off to the 4-weapons blacksmith shop. She never really had much of emotion to do with the show. She was simply just a piece of the plot. But you could tell that she was never fully content with that, and you can see multiple instances across after the pilots and more towards the start of the first season where she has her moments where you realise that she definitely wanted more. In The Secret of the Blacksmith short from 2011, you will note that Nia had to encounter some skulking and she had to fight them off because they were threatening her. And you will note that even in this state, before Nia really started training all too much, well, as far as we're aware anyways, you will see that she's actually quite skilled in a fight, and she defeats them quite easily. And it shows that Nia very much had a keen interest in martial arts, or the way of the ninja more specifically. I think it's quite interesting to note that from the beginning, she was definitely a skilled combatant before she was fully training in any sort of way. And this does extend into the first season, where you realise that she was actually training actively and she was quite good at it. She was attempting to beat Kai's record and she was fairly close to doing it by the looks of it. And ultimately you can tell that she was very much good at what she was trying to do. And that frustration didn't just show up in her physical actions, she also verbally remarked about it as well. In the first episode of the first season, she says to Wu why can't she have an elemental dragon, which shows that she clearly wanted more than the position she was at. And because she wasn't involved in the ninja team, she ultimately had to find something for herself, and this is what made her go towards a new identity for herself, which was Samurai X. And this was honestly a big moment for Nia, because this took her from simply a side character to someone that was on her own path. She's carving her own identity here, she's making her own mark on Ninjago. She is separating herself from what she was before, which was simply just, like I said, Kai's sister. And I definitely think this was a good thing. I think Nia being Samurai X was fantastic in these earlier seasons, because it gave her her own mark, it gave her her own moment, and it gave her something that she could have for herself. And she even says this in later seasons. She liked the fact she was Samurai X because it was her identity. And we will get into that later on, but I do think it's interesting to note that it's very clear that she was proud of what she was becoming. And I honestly think it was a good thing that Nia did become the Samurai X that we all knew and love, because you will see that the community at the time were very happy that Nia was getting her own moment within the show. She wasn't simply just to the side, because I do think a lot of people wanted more from Nia at this point, and giving her this arc and this momentum I think was perfect. But while she was Samurai X, she did have a lot of very cool moments, and I honestly think it was fantastic to have. There were some slight downsides. I personally think in season 2, where she again became almost a plot point, where she was corrupted by dark matter, and the ninja's whole thing was to go and find and save her. I do think that was a little bit of a shame, because I do feel like they almost made her a little weaker in season 2 for that reason, but ultimately at the same time, she still was very much holding her own at this point in time. Luckily, season 3 and 4 do give us some fantastic moments that actually show that she is more than just a simple samurai, and she really is a very good combatant. I mean, season 3, she fights off against the Ninjoid army very well. She fights Pythor, she fought Wu. She is very much in her own, and I don't think she actually necessarily loses the fight in season 3. And season 4 even expanded on this by giving her the fight with Klaus. I think the Klaus fight was absolutely amazing, and I actually think it was one of the better ones from that season, because Nia holding her own against Klaus was fantastic, and she very much shows that she is more than just the samurai armor. She is just simply put really good at what she does. But this is when Nia hits a very large turning point. Season 5 is quite interesting because it does officially make her a water ninja, and even though she was Samurai X before now, you could still consider her at the very least a side character because ultimately it was always about the ninja. But her becoming a ninja on her own put her into the main stage and made her officially a main character. This completely changed the dynamic of Nia within the course of Ninjago. She was not someone who was on her own, maybe on her own separate missions like we were seeing before now. She is now officially someone who is with the ninja and is completely associated with the big bad and the main plot of every single season. And honestly, this was great. I do think the introduction of Nia being a main character was big for her character because it gave her more opportunity for more development, it gave her more opportunity for something more than what she already was. And I do think that was the ultimate point. It was a move that made Nia have the ability to have much more when it came to the show itself. And I definitely do think they take advantage of this, just simply in the wrong way. Because even though Season 5 has this brilliant arc of showing Nia overcome her own fear, learning how to control water, overcoming her doubts about herself, and unlocking her true potential, you get to Season 6 and it feels almost like it's regressed slightly. Because Nia is now the main character, she has to be associated with some sort of arc in every single season, and it seems that Season 6 tries to do this whole I want to be independent but I'm actually not arc, and I honestly think it was kind of a downside for the character of Nia. Of course, the main thing is her arc with her relationship with Jay, and I don't mind that whatsoever because that arc needed to happen at some point. But I do think at the same time, Nia still needed something within that season that was a little more disconnected from Jay, but she ultimately never got it. Now, I don't think she needed a retread over her Season 5 arc of overcoming a fear because she didn't need to do that. I mean, she technically conquered a fear because she had an elemental dragon. But I do think at the same time, they could have done something more in line with her adjusting to be part of the team or adjusting to be more of a ninja. I mean, she had to still learn Edjitsu and Spinjitzu, but they kind of just get away with that. I mean, we never actually see the scene where she unlocks Spinjitzu. So I do think that was a little bit of a misstep when it comes to Ninjago as a whole, or more specifically just Nia's character arc. I think Season 6 could have been more than her relationship with Jay, because Jay had more than just that relationship, so it feels like it should have been for Nia as well. I mean, in my opinion, Dragon's Rising does do this concept, but just simply better. I mean, I'll get to it later on, but Nia's arc in Dragon's Rising is basically the Skybound arc done better. It focuses a lot on the relationship between Nia and Jay, and at the same time, it still gives Nia stuff to do at the exact same time. But that's not like Skybound doesn't do stuff for Nia's arc in this regard. I mean, we get to see Nia actually verbally explain how she is feeling at this point in the show. She feels like she was always attached to an identity, and honestly, it sounds like she truly did believe Samurai X was her own. She talks about how she was simply just Kai's sister, and then she was Jay's horrible girlfriend. And the fact is that even when she was Samurai X, she was told that she had to be the water ninja. And that sentence is honestly very telling, because it shows that Samurai X was truly the identity where she felt the most independent. And I do think that is quite fascinating, because even when earlier Nia wanted what the ninja had, dragons, the abilities of Spinjitzu, all this different training, she realized that once she had it, she missed what she was. And Season 7 even covers this fact in remarks when Nia says that she wishes she was still Samurai X at times, and she realizes that it's an identity that she is still very protective of, because once Pixel steals the identity for herself, she wants that identity back. It's her identity. And I do think it shows a fascinating case of Nia really wanting to be her own character, and she clearly does feel somewhat obligated to be the water ninja. But unfortunately, this whole arc gets dropped after this point. This moved us into Season 8, where Nia definitely does become a bit more of a different character, but she is much more firm in her stance of being the water ninja. A post-movie Nia, in my opinion, is much more loud, she's much more aggressive, she's much more of her own, and she's much more confident in what she does. And I don't think that's a byproduct of the movie version of her, I just simply think it's another indication of her character. It is clear to me that between Season 7 and Season 8, or more specifically losing Wu, she's seemingly become a lot more confident in herself, and she definitely feels much more interesting because of that fact. Whilst the arc doesn't necessarily move too much in any of the seasons before the next one I want to talk about, you will note that she still does have instances in seasons where she shows doubt, she shows guilt, and she shows that she needs to stay reassured in herself even though she very clearly has her doubts. Season 9, we literally see her trying to grieve her brother and her friends, and she's trying to stay strong just because Lloyd is also feeling down. It shows that Nia is trying to have that strong face, that very strong Nia persona, but in reality, she is just as scared as Lloyd. And I do think that's a very interesting contrast, because it does show that between season 7 and 8, Nia definitely became a more hardened exterior persona, but she's still just as soft on the inside. The other interesting thing that she becomes during this time, I would definitely say, is protective. I feel like she was definitely protective beforehand, but it definitely feels like she is much more outright with it now. I mean, season 13, we get to see her become very aggressive and very protective over Jay when the Queen of the Months attempts to take Jay for herself. And I do think that's honestly a very subtle instance of Nia progressing in her character arc. I don't think an earlier version of Nia would have been so outright in her protective nature of Jay. I feel like she would have been much more calm about the situation, or maybe even presented like she didn't even care. But the fact is that during this time, she is very protective of Jay, and this very much never goes away. This shows to me that not only is she very much a main character by this point in time, she is also much more comfortable in expressing who she truly is. It shows that over the course of time, she has gone from a side character to her own identity to a main character to a confident version of a main character. And it only goes up from here. Because this is, in my opinion, where we get to the peak of the character of Nia, which is Seabound. This is where she's possibly at her strongest. This is where she gets a lot more growth. This is where we see her with a lot more emotional depth. And this is where we see her actually realize that she is who she is. Nia is very much in her element, zing, in this season. And I do think it's interesting to note that she actually does become a lot more of her own during this time. She expresses how she feels to the people around her, she expresses her doubts, and she expresses how she wants to be able to do the best that she physically can, and that culminates in her becoming one with the sea, a very big sacrifice and very showing for who she is as a character. And the fact that that sacrifice is remarked as one of the most powerful moments we've ever seen in Ninjago really shows how far the character of Nia has come. She has gone from, like I said, the side character to the character that holds one of the most emotionally involved moments over the course of the entire show. And that is, in my opinion, something that an earlier version of Nia simply could not have achieved. Over the course of the years, she has had so much time, she has so much arc, she has had so much character development, she has had all these things, and has been able to culminate in something that truly gave us something that will be memorable for the rest of the show. And this is, in my opinion, why the Ninjago community loves the character of Nia. I honestly don't really know anyone who doesn't like the character of Nia. If you don't, I would love to know your thoughts on it. But honestly, over the course of the show, it's really demonstrated why she has become so beloved. The strength that she holds in all aspects, physical, emotional, mental, she has all of them, and is definitely one of the strongest characters because of that fact. She is more than determined in all of her arcs and in all of her strives to get what she wants, and you can see that literally up to Dragon's Rising. And over anything, the independence of Nia, something that honestly everyone strives for. You will note that even though she has had setbacks, and of course who doesn't, the fact is that even though she is someone who is also just a ninja, she is still striving for that independent nature. And I honestly think she more than achieves that. And I honestly don't even think it ends there. I think there's more to it as to the reason why people like her. I mean, I honestly consider her quite a relatable character in general. I mean, we see her struggles with who she is and who she is meant to be and her worth to herself and how can she live up to her own expectations. Something that I think all of us can relate to in our own lives. And I honestly think she demonstrates that back and forth perfectly across the show. And that is why I believe Nia has truly carved her own path and has truly become her own character across the course of the show. I believe that she has very much made her way into the most iconic nature when it comes to Ninjago, and I think it's something that fans will discuss for years to come. And honestly, I think she is one of the best characters that we have. But like I said, if you disagree with me, I would love to know why. But where is she now? Honestly, we have had some interesting moments with Nia post-Seabound. I mean, Crystallize is very interesting when it comes to Nia. Honestly, that whole thing is worth a separate thing on its own because, well, summary, the whole thing is, does Nia really need her power to be a ninja? And then her whole arc culminates with her getting her powers back. So that's interesting, to put it lightly, but I definitely think Dragon's Rising has rescued her for a lot of ways. Dragon's Rising Nia has been fantastic and has just continued my point to no end. I mean, Nia in Dragon's Rising has taken almost more of a leadership role in a lot of ways. I mean, we've seen her have amazing moments with Sora, for example, so it's definitely more of a leadership and more of an initiative quality that she's starting to take on. She's become a lot more supportive of Kai, which I do think is fantastic. The Kai and Nia dynamic has been fantastic in Dragon's Rising, and I hope we just simply get more of it, because it really does feel like they're siblings now more than ever. And of course, her whole arc with Jay, trying to find him and trying to get the love of her life back. I mean, we've had so many amazing moments when it comes to Nia and Jay already. I mean, Season 2 Part 2, where she confesses her love for him and he remarks that he hates her, I think is fascinating. And her finding him in Dragon's Rising Season 3 Part 1 is also fascinating. And honestly, Season 3 Part 2 can't come quick enough, because I want to see how that continues on, if they do it. But Dragon's Rising Nia is just a continuous reminder that she is achieving the ultimate goal that she wanted, which is being independent but also having the ninja abilities that she always seemed to have desired. I think she has become the perfect blend of a main character, a hero, a ninja, and truly Nia. But what do you think of the character of Nia? Do you like the arc that she is on? Do you like the progression that she has had? Do you miss her as Samurai X? Are there any arcs that you don't particularly like? I will say, I have purposely missed out the love triangle arc in this video because I truly don't want to approach that whole situation. But I honestly don't think it had too much of an input on this video anyways. But let me know what you think of her, because I do think it's a very interesting topic, and I do think she, in general, is a fantastic character to talk about. But that is about it for today, you guys. And thank you very much for watching, and take care. Okay, bye!